Mexico or Panama, which one is the better country? That's what I'm going to talk about in this video. As you guys know, we traveled all across Mexico, going to all the areas that expats mostly go to in Mexico. And right now we're here in Panama and we're traveling across the whole country in Panama, checking out many of the areas that expats like to move to. The countries are wildly different. It's fair to say they are wildly different. You know, each has its pros and cons, and depending on what people are doing, whether they're retiring or whether they're just looking at a better country to move to operate their small business from, the countries are wildly different in that respect too. So I'm gonna attack it from both angles. Mexico, the people are really, really nice. They're super friendly. They want to chat to you. The people are just so nice in Mexico. The flip side to that is you get a lot of hassle from the Mexican people in tourist areas. I mean, it's gonna happen. They're constantly gonna hassle you even if you live there. I know people that lived there for years and they got hassled constantly. That is gonna happen if you're going to those touristy areas, and is definitely something to know. But on the whole, the people are really, really nice. They're really, really friendly and helpful and just really outgoing people in Mexico. The people of Mexico are really something that makes the country special, in my opinion, and it's totally different to the people in Panama. The people in Panama, they are super nice as well. It's just more of a laid-back vibe in Panama. It's just not the same. The customer service, the service levels that you're getting is much lower in Panama. It's more like the Caribbean. It's more like Central America, which makes sense. It's in Central America, but it's just not Mexico. Mexico, the service you get from the Mexican people is phenomenal. Here in Panama, you get really good service, but it's very hit and miss, and there's a very laid-back attitude. And if you don't have a lot of time, that could annoy you. If you're a person that wants things done and you don't want to be sitting around waiting for stuff all the time, then Panama could frustrate you. So that's one thing to definitely note. The next thing is the cost. The cost of things has kind of surprised us, especially in Panama. You know, we thought that Panama would be relatively affordable. We were wrong in that respect. Panama is affordable, but it's not going to be affordable for everybody. It is definitely more expensive. You know, if you're not a retiree, you have to pay a lot of money to move here. You either have to do a real estate investment visa, which is going to require that you buy a property worth more than $250,000, I believe. I'll link on the screen what it actually is. It's going to require that you do that, and then if you can't do that, you have to get like a business investment residency, which is very expensive. So both options are very expensive when it comes down to it. But obviously, if you're planning to make a real estate purchase, then here in Panama it's not going to make that much difference, but it's still going to cost you money definitely to come here. It's more complicated than Mexico. Mexico is pretty open, you know, it is unique in that way. And also the people are very welcoming. You know, they love foreigners. You know, foreigners are the reason that Mexico is the way it is today. And it's the same in Panama to a certain extent. And what I mean by that is, you know, these were countries that were colonized by the Spanish, by foreigners. So, you know, there's a lot of angst, I think, from some communities saying that people are coming here colonizing from places like Canada and the United States. But I don't think that's technically true, because what time frame are you looking at? Because these places have been colonized by different people. Panama, the cost of living is definitely higher than Mexico, especially when you're talking about food. Food has been really shocking here in Panama. It's insanely expensive, and don't let anybody tell you it's not. We've been to about 5 different grocery stores, and I actually asked a Facebook group to rank the grocery stores based on what is most affordable to least affordable, so we could go to all the different ones. And we did, and what we found out was the food in the grocery stores, for a start off, is weird. They seem to have very little produce. In a country which can grow pretty much anything, you kind of think that's a little bit weird. I think that's a little bit weird, because in Costa Rica or in Mexico, the amount of produce that you can get, the abundance of produce and the cost of produce, it's inexpensive. Whereas here in Panama, that's definitely not the case. It's actually very expensive. It's more more expensive than Canada and the United States. If you exclude British Columbia and you exclude California from the equation, food is more expensive here in Panama. And that can be something that affects, you know, if you're living on a fixed income, then you don't want your food prices being extremely high, because that's going to be a cost you're going to have to pay no matter what. On the flip side to that, gas is actually way cheaper here in Panama. However, that is because of a policy that the government put in place after massive protests and civil unrest last year over the high cost of living that had happened in Panama. Is there any longevity for them to keep doing that? I don't think so. It could be an economic catastrophe if they continue to do that, because the cost of that is going to cost them a lot of money, right? And they've got the gas prices fixed at like 85 cents right now. If you're in Canada, it's like 150, and if you're in most parts of the US, it's around $4 a gallon. So the price of gas here is much cheaper. It's at least 20% cheaper, and that's just excluding the tax, because they fixed the gas prices. Panama is cheaper in a lot of different ways though that you wouldn't expect. So if you wanted to buy like appliances, or you wanted to buy a car, or any other things besides food, we've actually found that they're very affordable. They're not expensive here in Panama, whereas in Mexico it's the opposite. There's more import taxes, and you're going to pay more money for cars, you're going to be paying more money for appliances and different things like that. However, labor, construction is all better in Mexico, in my opinion, because the construction quality is much better in Mexico, and it's also cheaper. The construction quality here in Panama isn't that great, and what I mean by that is just it's the design, a lot of the upkeep of different places. Even the real estate contact that we used here in Panama was saying that that is a problem that they have here, is the buildings are just not well maintained, and you definitely see that all the time. So you kind of have to buy new then. It's not exactly affordable, especially if you're looking in expat communities like Boquete. Boquete is more expensive than a lot of places in the US which people go retire. So it's kind of crazy when you think about that. It doesn't seem like Panama is in a bubble at all. It doesn't seem like the real estate market is euphoric like in Mexico and all the expat areas. Those are in giant bubbles due to Airbnb. That is a positive, but you're still going to pay more here in Panama for a property than you would in Mexico. I just believe you're getting more fair value here in Panama than you are in Mexico. A property purchase in Mexico right now could definitely burn a lot of people, so that's worth noting. Healthcare is very important to different people. It's very important to me. It's top of the priority when you move to a place, and it's one of the things that is absolutely terrible in Canada, and it's also terrible in the United States. You know, I have family who live in the United States. It's just so expensive. Even the co-pays, if you have insurance, are ridiculous. They are absolutely ridiculous. So healthcare here in Panama is very affordable, and it's very good. You've got good choice of hospitals, good access to healthcare, very affordable. You know, you got pharmacies, you can get world-class treatment here in Panama. So it's very good in that respect. You know, Mexico is the same. I wouldn't say that they're much different. I would say that in Mexico, depending on which avenue you go down, you could find it to be more expensive than actually in Panama. But yeah, that's just my opinion. But on the whole, mostly seeing a doctor is probably actually going to be cheaper in Mexico. Just having operations and all that sort of stuff, going to the emergency room, that could cost you a lot in Mexico. It depends really on which place you go to, because some of the places rip you off like they do in the United States. So you have to be very careful. Here in Panama, it's a totally different vibe. It's totally laid back. The weather is totally different. You have loads of climates in Mexico. Here right now, it's the rainy season. It's June, and you can see it's gray. It's very humid right now though. It's like 37 degrees with the humidity. So it's very warm. It's like 100 Fahrenheit. And I don't mind this weather actually. A lot of people don't like this weather. I don't mind it. It's an equatorial climate in Panama. It's a tropical climate throughout most of the country. There are some regions like Boquete which are popular with expats, which are milder, but it rains a heck of a lot in those places. and it's not that mild, you know. It's like 10 degrees milder, and you might say, well, Luke, that's a lot, you know, 10 degrees. The humidity is even higher in Boquete. Now, bear in mind, I've only visited there in the humid season, which is June. I think all year round it's humid, but this is technically the monsoon season, right? So the weather here in Panama is totally different to Mexico. You know, there's mountain climates in Mexico. There's desert climates in Mexico. You don't have desert climates. You do have mountain climates to an extent, but it's always tropical, moist mountain climates. You don't have any like semi-arid or arid, dry mountain climates like you have in Mexico. So Mexico kind of has every climate on offer. Here in Panama, it doesn't. And if you don't like the heat, then you will really struggle here in Panama because it gets hot. I mean, it gets really hot. When we arrived in Panama City, we walked up one of the hills in the Metropolitan Park. It was sunny that day, and it was around 46 degrees with the humidity. 46 degrees, that is over 110 Fahrenheit. Very humid, extremely humid. That was hot. So it does get hot here. If you don't like the heat, probably not the place for you. You know, for us, we're really thinking like, out of all the places that we've been to that we think we could live in, is here in Panama and Baja California. And it's really going to be a toss-up between the two. You see, for us, we think that there could be an opportunity to buy a property at a cheaper price in Baja California over the next couple of years, because there's been a massive amount of speculation. There's going to be an Airbnb bust. You know, 50% of all the developments that have sold, and there's been hundreds across Mexico in all these expat communities, have been for Airbnb, and we're heading into a global recession. Now, here in Panama, I don't really see the real estate prices going down that much. That being said, yes, we could buy here. I think we would be spending more money than we would be comfortable with on a real estate purchase. We just have too much of our money tied up in real estate. It wouldn't be a good way to do it financially. So we're thinking we're either going to rent here or we're going to go to Mexico. We really don't know which one. But you know, coming here to Panama has been really interesting, and I hope this video has kind of provided some insight for you. If you want to see more videos like this, you might like that video there. You might also like this video here. I talk a lot about why people are leaving Canada. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.